Okay, welcome. We're here at the Sarasota County Administration Center, R.L. Anderson Building for the Peace River Manasota Regional Water Supply Authority Board of Directors meeting. It's April 1st, 2026. If you're able, would you please stand, join me as I lead the invocation, and then remain standing for the pledge. Gracious Father, thank you for the blessing of another day surrounded by the natural beauty of your creation here in Suncoast of Florida. We're grateful for the recent rains, a welcome reminder that every good and perfect gift comes down from above. We pray for those who keep us safe, for our law enforcement, our first responders, that you protect them and bless their families. We ask a special blessing on our military and armed forces, especially those in active combat and in harm's way. Keep them safe and protect them, and may the outcome be peace. For those of us who serve this community in whatever capacity, elected, appointed, as staff, may we do so with diligence, integrity, and most importantly, humility. Give us the wisdom and courage to make good decisions and always do what is right, regardless. As we approach this weekend celebration of the most important event in history, may we be reminded to live and serve by the words of the motto of this great state of Florida, "In God we trust." In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, we'll move into our agenda. I have a call to order, roll call. I believe all 4 members of the board are present with us today. Mr. Anderson, is that correct? Okay, so with that, we'll move to the host county remarks, and for that we have our county administrator, Mr. Jonathan Lewis.
So just as a warning for anybody who might be coming up and speaking today, we're in transition on our audio system in here. You actually have to turn on your own mic if it's not already on. And red does not mean stop. It actually means it's working. So just so you all know where we're speaking. So Chair, Commissioners, I think I said last time we were all together, the community just doesn't know how important the work being done at Peace River is on a regional basis. The fact that 4 counties, think about this, in the state of Florida and the way we are, 4 counties get together and have been getting together for decades to promote something and provide something as important as water to our region. And the forethinking that you all have had to make sure that not only do we have the first reservoir, the second reservoir, but now the third reservoir and what all that means, it's important to our community. Even if you take out the arguments about growth and what that might mean, just looking at knowing for our normal residents who are here now, and as we get more and more straws out of the ground and more people on potable water systems to protect our water quality and our environment here locally, the role that you all play at the Peace River is significant. Probably goes unappreciated most of the time, certainly probably goes unnoticed, but not those of us in the industry. So on behalf of 500,000 people in Sarasota County, thank you for what you do and welcome here. If I can take one moment of personal privilege, Chair?
Yes, please.
So, one of the nice things that I'm speaking for staff now is knowing that, Peace has subject matter experts that do what they do so well, maybe a small but mighty group, and knowing that Jim Guida has been a member of that team these past years and what he's able to do with permitting and with just the complexity that we have out there. Knowing that he's been a part of that team, we just want to thank him for his service. It's appreciated, and no one's more respected than him when it comes to the work that he does. So he's been a huge asset to Peace River and really to all 4 counties. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, and welcome to South County. We're glad to be here in the RLA Center. It's only 5 minutes from my house, which is very nice, I have to admit. I did overlook something. I did want to share some unfortunate news. One of our staff members, Lisa Wooten, lost her teenage nephew in a tragic car accident I think it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And so would you please keep the Wooten family in your prayers. With that, I don't believe, have there been any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, no changes today.
And has anybody signed up for public comment? Do we have any public comment? No public comment. So with that, we'll go ahead and move to our consent agenda. And so does any member wish any consent agenda item pulled for discussion?
Motion to move consent?
We have a motion and a second. And go ahead and call the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That moves forward unanimously. Moving on to our regular agenda, we will move to item number 1, our water supply conditions report.
Hello, good morning. Katie Gilmore of your staff. I'm here to present on regular item number 1, our water supply conditions report. As always, this is for information purposes only and no action is required. So today first, I will go over our rainfall, river flows, withdrawal, storage conditions at the facility through March 15th. Then I do want to spend some time discussing the current drought conditions and our response and also swift mud actions in regards to the drought. And then finally, we'll go over our regional water supply deliveries for the month of February. Okay, so first up, you can see here the rainfall in the basin for the last 2 years, from March of 2024 through February of 26. And with the green line being the actual rainfall received and that blue dashed line being the historic average monthly rainfall. So we've continued to receive below average rain for the last few months. In fact, as you can see, over the last 2 years shown here, we've been below that historical average every month except for September through October of 2024, which was, of course, Hurricanes Helene and Milton. And then also May of last year, we had about 4.5 inches more than average. But other than that, we have been below. We did receive some much needed rain in March, particularly this second half of March, and this only goes through February, so none of that is shown here. But the month totaled 1.92 inches, so that's still below the average of 2.87, but it provided some much needed flow on the river. Looking ahead, they're predicting potentially above normal precipitation the next 3 months, April, May, and June. And then, of course, we've all seen that there's pointing to a possible El Nino, so maybe a wetter winter and fall and winter this year. But we are still going into April, which is traditionally our driest month. So we do have to get through a little bit longer before hopefully things really start to improve. Okay, the historical monthly river flow is shown here. This is again for 2 years, and this goes through March 15th of this year. The red line is the minimum flow to withdrawal, and that's 130 CFS. The blue line is our historic monthly flow, and the green is the actual flow received. So the lack of rain has resulted in below average river flows as well. Flow has remained below the minimum for withdrawal since early November. So we have not been able to withdraw the water. You'll see on the next slide. In fact, over the last 16 months since those 2024 hurricanes, we've been below average on the flow. And notably, we did not see a normal spike that we typically see in the summer months due to having below average rainfall over the summer as well. Flows for January and February were below 130 at 91 and 112 CFS for those 2 months. Flows did pick up in March, and you can see a little uptick if you look closely at the graph. On this graph, it's 152 through the 15th of March, but we did finish the month with 169. We had some rain at the end of the month, which gave us flows over 200 for a few days. All right, so the river withdrawals in million gallons per day for the last 2 years, again through March 15th, are shown here. So we were unable to withdraw any water from the river from that first week in November through February 7th. And then in February, we had 3 days where we could take water, so we did. We finished the month with just 0.696 million gallons per day in withdrawal, and none for the month of January, of course. In March, we were able to have some, so this graph, you see the uptick, that was representing an 8.73 million gallons per day as of the 15th. And then by the end of the month, we were able to increase that. Due to the ongoing drought, we requested an emergency order from SwiftMud to modify the river diversion schedule on the water use permit to actually allow us to do some pumping below that 130 minimum that's normally in the permit. This order was executed on March 18th, and it allows us to take some water at flows as low as 50 cubic feet per second. Down to 50, we can take about 10 million gallons per day from the river. So that order, coupled with the little bit of rain we did receive at the end of March, did allow us to finish off the month of March at about 12 million gallons per day average withdrawals from the river. All right, so this is our surface water storage in the reservoir system for the last 10 years. Goes through March 15th. So with the river flow being below that minimum to withdrawal for most of the last few months, we've not been able to pump from the river to the reservoirs. So as a result, the volume of surface water stored in the reservoirs has decreased, as you can see here. And this resulted in our source water availability being stressed. As of March 15th, there was a total of 3.46 billion gallons in the system. And this value is much lower than typical for this time of year. Similar to the February meeting, this graph has been expanded to show you 10 years worth of data versus the normal 3 that I normally share. You can see how we compare to the worst year within that 10-year history, which was 2017. So we remain above the absolute minimum from that year, but we are lower in March than we were in 2017 by about 300 million gallons. So the good news, though, as you can see on the graph, the increase in available water in March has allowed that to slow the decline and basically hold steady. This is made possible from the little bit of pumping from the river, and then also because we are pumping from the ASR system into the reservoir system, and we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. And then in the second half of March with the emergency order, we were able to actually end the month of March at 3.6 billion gallons in storage, so we did add storage to the system over the month, about 150 million gallons during the month. Okay, so next up, the ASR storage the last 10 years. This goes again through March 15th. The blue line shows the total volume in storage, and the orange is the usable, which is about 60% of the total. So as of March 15th, we had 7.4 billion gallons total stored in the ASR system, which is about 4.5 billion gallons in usable volume. And at the beginning of this week, we dropped slightly to 7.1 and 4.4. Due to lack of river flow, we did start ASR recovery at the beginning of November, and we've steadily increased the amount that we're pumping from the system. Today, we're getting about 18 to 20 million gallons per day from the ASR system, and that's about the maximum that we can pump operationally from the system on a given day. Similar to the surface water graph, this one's been expanded to show you the 10-year history so we could capture the 2017 drought conditions. So as you can see here, we actually do have more water in the system than we did in 2017, even though we have been pumping ASR for several months. We're about 900 million gallons more than we were during that year. Of course, as a reminder, this water gets pumped from ASR storage into the reservoir system to supplement what we don't have from the river. All right, and then our estimated days of supply is shown here with 3.5 billion gallons in surface water and 4.5 billion gallons in usable ASR. We had a combined supply on the 15th of right around 8 billion gallons. So that's about 265 days or 8.8 months at 30 million gallons per day, or about 7.5 months at 34.7 million gallons per day. So you can clearly see here the amount has decreased over the last few months, and that's because we've been pulling more out of the system than we've been putting in with the low availability of the river water. Moving forward, though, the emergency order from SwiftMud will allow us to take that 10 million gallons per day from the river as long as the flows do stay above 50. That'll help to further slow the decline. So overall, we have been managing the drought and the lack of rainfall and river flow, but we have less water available than we normally would this time of year. And we're being very mindful of our supply and demand as we approach these last couple of months of the dry season. And so with that, I did want to spend a little bit of time over the next few slides to discuss the current drought conditions in a little more detail, what the lack of rainfall has meant for us in the region, and what we and also your staff have been doing to manage that. The drought has continued to intensify across the state over the last few months. The entire state of Florida is now in a drought, and the majority is in the extreme drought classification. As I mentioned, the last 2 board meetings, SwiftMud did take action with emergency water shortage orders, phase 1 and then a modified phase 2. This slide is somewhat vague because we didn't have all the information, but they did vote at their March 24th meeting to go to the next phase. So it's a phase 3 water shortage order. So this imposes more strict requirements on irrigation and other uses than is normally in effect year-round, and in addition to what's been in effect with the phase 1 and the phase 2. This phase 3 will go in effect this Friday, April 3rd. So some highlights to know is that phase 3 continues the once per week watering that phase 2 brought. It does further restrict the times that are allowed to water. So homes under an acre can only water between midnight and 4 a.m. or 8 p.m. and midnight on their watering day. Restaurants are only allowed to serve water upon request during this phase of the order. At-home car washing is only allowed on the watering day that you have that week. Must use a shutoff nozzle. And then there are some further requirements for your water utilities in terms of customer education and enforcement efforts. A notable one is including that citations must be issued without giving a warning first, and that'll start 14 days after the order is effective, or April 17th. Okay, and then so the drought has affected the available water supply due to the inability to pump off of the river with the lack of rainfall. So over the last few months, we've taken action to ensure that we can stretch the supply that we do have to meet the regional needs during this drought. So without river water, the water stored in the reservoirs is slowly used to meet plant demand. So we focused on two primary areas: one, finding more water supply, and then also reducing demand leaving our facility. Some of the highlights of what we've done are listed here. One, we did start that ASR recovery early in November as soon as the river water was no longer available, and we've steadily ramped that up to our operational maximum that we're at currently of right around 20 million gallons per day. We've taken advantage of pumping water from the river whenever it's available. So in a normal year, when we've been dry, when we get that first flow of river water, we might not take the water. There are some water quality concerns. There might be a little bit higher salinity. We see impacts from the tides. But this year, we've taken extra effort to really do online monitoring and grab samples of the water and then time our pumping of the river to when the water quality is good, just to really take advantage of any available water that we do have. We've also focused on optimizing all the sources of supply that we do have and reducing demand in our system where possible. Some examples here include lowering the system pressure leaving our facility. We've lowered it twice by about a total of 5 PSI. We've had discussions with Punta Gorda that resulted in them providing about 1 to 2 million gallons per day into the regional system. We've held meetings with your professional staff with the goal of maximizing the use of any of the more drought-resistant sources that you might have across the region. So one result of these discussions was with Sarasota County, where they've increased production from their Carlton groundwater facility and reduced a little bit from our facility. So we really appreciate the efforts by all the staff to make sure we're utilizing the sources that we have for the entire region to the best of their ability. We have been able to increase the amount of source water that we have available by activating our operational flexibility water use permit and working with SwiftMud and the City of Punta Gorda to implement 2 emergency orders for temporary relaxation of the Peace River and then also the Shell Creek MFLs. So the results that we've seen here is that with the operational flexibility permit, Inglewood Water District has indicated they may have up to 300,000 gallons per day they could put into the regional system. There would be some operational maintenance on the interconnects needed for that to happen, but they've indicated they might have the water availability. Punta Gorda is going to be able to pump about 2.2 million gallons more from Shell Creek temporarily with the emergency order they've received from SwiftMud. And then, of course, we are allowed to pump that 10 million gallons per day from the river at flows as low as 50 CFS. So that additional pumping from the river, coupled with the 20 million gallons per day that we're pulling from ASR, that basically meets our daily demand of 30 leaving the plant, and that'll help keep everything kind of steady as long as we can pull that off the river, or at least slow the decline as we try to get through these next couple of months until we start seeing some really regular rains. We, and also your staff, have increased the conservation messaging through press releases, media interviews, social media posts, bill inserts. We've teamed up with your staff where needed. For example, Mike recently did a Facebook post with Charlotte County, working with their utilities to have his face on their utilities that went out to Charlotte County customers. Sorry, that's all. So before moving to the regional production and water use, I just wanted to pause here to see if you had any questions specific to the drought response and management.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments for staff on this? I do have one question.
Yes.
First of all, kudos on starting recovery early, seeing that coming ahead and moving quickly on that. It says maximum operational capacity of about 20 million gallons a day is what you said. Why is that? Is that because we don't have the pumping capacity?
The pumps and the motors, so that's kind of running the motors at the maximum. We don't want to lose a well, so we have 21 wells, and that's really the highest rate we're comfortable running them. There's concerns that the pumps and the motors wouldn't handle any higher pumping.
Okay, that's an interesting something to talk about in terms of getting maybe additional. We could pump additional if we had the
Potentially, yeah. There could be upgrades we look at into the future to optimize the system to be able to pull more water if we needed to.
Okay, and then the second thing for me is this is just confirmation of how important it is we keep moving forward on the third reservoir. This is exactly what we were looking at, and so it's, you know, the fact that we're underway is a relief, because
Yes.
obviously it's going to be really helpful. All right, any further comments, questions? Seeing none, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Okay, so then moving on to our regional water production and use for the region in February. So here you see the authority and member and customer water supplies and capacities for the month. As a reminder, our combined regional capacity of the authority and our customers is right around 107 million gallons per day. So in February, we delivered 30.77 million gallons per day to the region, and our members and customers together delivered 64.22 for a total right around 95 million gallons per day. Of that total production, 3.48 was delivered by Manatee to their non-authority wholesale customers in the town of Longboat Key, city of Palmetto, and city of Bradenton, giving the total February demand from authority members and customers of 91.51, which is 85% of the capacity. For Charlotte County, they purchased 14.87 million gallons per day from the authority and self-supplied about 1 million gallons per day for a total use of 15.87. And that's 82% of their total countywide capacity. DeSoto purchased 0.72 million gallons a day from us and self-supplied 0.34, giving them a total use of 1.06, and that's 68% of their capacity. I'm here for Manatee. This is their production from their facilities, so a total of 49.53 million gallons per day from their own facilities, with 43.58 of that going to serve their retail customers, and 2.47 going to their non-authority wholesale customers, Longboat Key, Palmetto, and Bradenton, and 3.48 to serve Sarasota County. So overall, they're at about 94% of their permitted capacity. And then you can see Sarasota here, 13.04 from the authority, and supplied 10.2 from the Carlton facility, imported the 2.48 from Manatee with a total use of 25.72 or 87% of their capacity. So you can see on this slide the result of the improvements or the increase in the production at the Carlton and the decrease from us. Typically they've been closer to that 15 from us and more around 8 from the Carlton, but they've done that shift while we get through this drought period. Northport has purchased 2.14 million gallons per day from the authority and supplied 3.16 from their two facilities at Myakkahatchee Creek and Welland Park. That gives them a total use of 5.29 or 65% of their capacity. And so the average annual regional use for water years 2016 through 2025 is shown here, and the running 12-month average to date. So this is all regional deliveries to our members and customers as well as non-customers. So the running 12-month average use as of February 26 was 90.87, and so that's about 85% of the overall regional capacity. Okay, 85, I'm not sure what I just said, 85%. The breakdown here of the regional demands of authority members and customers for the month of February, with that total use of 95 is 88% of the regional capacity, and that leaves us 12.29 or 12% unused capacity. All right, and any other questions you have at this point, I'd be happy to take.
All right, any questions, staff, on that? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's pray for rain. With that, we're moving on to regular agenda item 2, and we have Mr. Knowles with us.
Morning, members of the board. Mike Knowles with Authority staff presenting regular agenda item number 2. This is the draft 5-year capital improvement plan, 20-year capital needs assessment. This presentation is for information purposes only, but we would appreciate any feedback the board has, and feel free to pause at any of these projects if you have any questions. So I'll be going over the purpose, development, and application of our CIP, an overview of the 5-year CIP, 20-year CNA as far as the budgets and project types, highlight our key projects, especially those within our 5-year CIP, and then discuss the next steps and schedule for implementing our CIP. So the purpose of our capital improvement plan is to serve as a blueprint for not only sustaining and improving our existing infrastructure, but also bringing new assets online to the authority. And that starts with our core values that are outlined in our strategic plan that was just updated this year. And then input from our 3 major departments, engineering and construction, operation, and finance, Those come together along with our integrated regional water supply plan that outlines long-term projects for the authority and needs within the region. Bringing that in together with our customers to collaborate with your professional staff and with the board here today, we will end up with a final capital improvement plan that we'll bring back to the June board. So an overview of our 5-year CIP and 20-year CNA as far as budgets. Overall, there's 18 projects, 6 of which are regional water transmission mains, 4 of which are in our 5-year CIP. Then there's 6 water supply projects, 3 of which are in our 5-year CIP, and then 6 system-wide benefit projects, 2 of which are within our 5-year CIP. Looking at the numbers, the total budget for our 5-year CIP is $693 million, with the majority of that at $664 million for our water supply projects, namely the PR3 and the PRF expansion. And then we have a remaining $20 million to be spent on the water transmission main projects currently under construction, and $9 million towards system-wide benefit projects. You can see the spending for the next 5 fiscal years. The majority of that spending is within the next 2 fiscal years, and all of the grants currently identified through the district, state, and federal would be utilized within the next fiscal year, totaling $76 million. So the total for the 20-year capital needs assessment, which is inclusive of the 5-year CIP, is $1.188 billion, with $932 million identified for water supply projects, $232 million for transmission main projects, and $24 million for system-wide benefits. Again, the majority of the spending is in the next 2 fiscal years, and then there's a ramp up in projected spending correlated with our next water supply project, potentially for Manatee County, starting in fiscal year 2033. So highlighting the key projects within our 5-year CIP, we have 4 transmission main projects, the first of which I'll talk about is a Phase 2B pipeline, which is 13 miles of 42-inch diameter pipe serve growing demands in western Charlotte County. Construction started on this pipeline March of 2024, and as of today, there's 9.5 miles of 42-inch pipe installed, starting at our Cirrus meter going through Hillsborough, across US 41, and construction is currently going on Chancellor Boulevard. We are still missing a Army Corps 404 permit to be able to cross the Myakka River, but we expect that soon. And contractually, we're looking at July 2027 for completion. However, if we can get the 404 sooner, we intend to be done sooner with that pipeline. So as I mentioned, construction is currently ongoing on Chancellor Boulevard. There's a lot less residential traffic on Chancellor than there was at Hillsborough, so we're able to move a little faster there. We're advancing west along Chancellor, and this is making the turn to go south along the Myakka Park easement. You can see it's been cleared, the pipe's been staged and ready for open cut installation, and we're just about to go past the City of Northport's monitoring well. And then a little bit here to the left of your screen, you're gonna see our HDPE pipe that will be used and fused together for the drill across the river. City of Northport was nice enough to give us a temporary easement to store the pipe there. And continuing south on the Myakka Forest easement, we come to Sarasota County's Myakka Island Point Preserve, where we will begin our drill to go south across the Myakka River and end up in an easement on the Myakka State Forest on the south side. So this is facing south from the Sarasota County Park. Second transmission main project also under construction is a Phase 3C pipeline, which is approximately 8 miles of 42-inch diameter transmission main, serving growing demands in northeast Sarasota County, having started construction in October of 2023. The pipeline originates at the end of the Phase 3B at Cowpen Slough and Clark Road, continues north along Cowpen Slough, and then Lorraine Road and Lorraine Road Extension. So about half the pipe is located along Cowpen Slough on the western bank, mostly in county right-of-way. It's a drainage right-of-way, but about 20 easements were acquired to make this installation along Cowpen Slough from private holders. And then this is our aerial crossing of Cowpen Slough. This alternative, as opposed to doing a microtunnel, saved the project about $2.5 million. But this is a Cowpen Slough crossing right at Clark Road. And as most of you were present, or at least aware, we had a ceremonial valve turning ceremony to commission the construction, installation, and putting into service of that 3C pipeline. So the remaining work on this project is the improvements at our 3A pump station site, which is located at the Carlton Water Treatment Plant. And those include an additional 5 million gallon storage tank, as well as improvements to the 3A pump station. We were waiting for a 404. That one actually did come through. And then pending easements, we're looking at a construction completion of August 2027 for the remainder of the 3C project. Our other two transmission main projects, the one on the left is the Phase 3C extension pipeline. That's projected to be either 36-inch or 42-inch diameter transmission main to connect from the end of the 3C pipe at Fruitville and Lorraine, generally north to connect with Manatee County. There's currently a feasibility study and routing analysis going on, and the results of that will be presented to the board at a later date. And then there's the Phase 2C pipeline, again, probably a 36-inch, 42-inch diameter transmission main, which will start the end of the 2B pipeline located at Gulf Cove Booster Station, Charlotte County's booster station, and then proceed generally west and north to the Venice Gardens Water Treatment Plant as a terminus location. That is also in the feasibility study and routing analysis phase, and the results of that will be presented at a later date. Our two system-wide benefit projects, we have the Water Resources and Construction Department building, which will be about a 5,000 square foot administration and laboratory building to replace the existing 60-year-old water resource building that we refer to as the Ranch House. And the other system-wide benefit is the Kings Highway widening project. While 2 miles of Kings Highway was studied for potential widening, starting next year, 1.1 miles will go from a 2-lane undivided road to a 2-lane divided road, or 4-lane divided road. And that will likely require the relocation of some of the 24-inch diameter transmission main as part of that project. For our water supply projects, we have 4 listed here. The PR3, or Peace River Regional Reservoir, number 3 is the first, and that includes the 9 billion gallon reservoir, 258 MGD river intake pump station, as well as the 78 MGD reservoir pump station and 84-inch diameter conveyance pipeline to connect that infrastructure. Then we have the PRF expansion, or the Peace River Facility expansion. That's a 24 MGD water plant expansion that, when combined with the storage and pumping with the PR3, yields the 18 MGD of annual average allocation per our master water supply contract that we're going to meet. And then a new project to our CIP, but not a new project to the authority or the Water Management District, is Flatford Swamp. We are proposing to look at the feasibility study of the Flatford Swamp project, turning into a potential water supply project in the future. The district has nearly completed the pilot study and permitting to look at aquifer recharge in that area. And again, we're working with the district and have been talking with them since 2008 on potentially having a water supply project come out of Flatford Swamp. And then the Brackish RO water treatment plant. That's a 8 MGD annual average yield brackish groundwater treatment plant. Originally, that was in the 5-year CIP until it was decided to move forward with the reservoir project for our next water supply project. But the Brackish RO is a permitted project through preliminary design. And so just want to mention that that project is available as our next shovel-ready water supply project when it's needed. So again, Flatford Swamp has been talked about with the authority since at least 2008, and it's been a district project long before that. But the potential is there with the aquifer recharge pilot study that the district completed for us to look at that as a feasibility study and turn this into a water supply project. So again, we're not proposing to move forward on the budget on this except for the feasibility study associated with looking at the water supply aspects. For the PRF expansion, this is not a miniature scale version of the future reservoir. This is actually the preloading that's taken place at the water treatment plant site. It's about 70,000 cubic yards of fill that was brought in. About 50,000 of that cubic yards will be utilized on site for grading to prepare for the new water plant. And the other 20,000 cubic yards is actually going to be utilized by our reservoir contractor for preloading. So we've got zero waste from the preloading effort that's taken place. And within the next month, that pile's already about halfway gone. And they should begin starting to form the concrete on some of the first structures to go into the water plant. And then with the PR3 project, the foundational work is nearly complete on the reservoir pump station, and we are beginning ordering the vertical turbine pumps and additional yard piping necessary to continue the construction of the reservoir pump station. The 4-4 for the PR3 project is imminent, and we're not touching any wetlands until that permit comes in, but we are continuing with other efforts, including fence removal, anything that we can do to prepare for that, the rest of the work that's coming with the PR3 project. And again, the Brackish RO water treatment plant, just want to bring this up, even though it's in the 20-year CNA, it is a project that is through preliminary design. Production wells and other deep injection wells, I believe, are permitted. So it is a project that could continue from the 60% design phase through final design and construction whenever it's required or requested. So next steps and schedule, we've met with your professional staff last month to go over this draft CIP. Any comments from the board here we would incorporate in the next iteration of this, and then we would present a final version of the 5-year CIP and 20-year CNA at the June board meeting for consideration. That, I'd like to entertain any questions the board has.
Okay, questions from the board? Mike, what do you do in your spare time?
Sleep.
Okay. No, that, you've got quite a challenging set of projects going on there, all great, but very forward-thinking. I was very interested in the one that you talked about there in Manatee County with the swamp. What, would that be a surface water?
Well, that's part of what we need to study is how we could utilize this project as a water source.
Okay.
It's potentially an aquifer recharge,
Okay.
and maybe similar to how Sarasota County was able to move credits from closing down the the University well field. It could be something similar where the aquifer is recharged at Flatfoot Swamp,
Okay.
and they withdraw it somewhere else by different parties. So I think all those details and coordination between the members needs to take place before we really know if it's a viable project.
Okay, appreciate it. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, classification and pay plan update.
Mr. Chair, as you alluded to, sadly, Lisa couldn't be here today, so if I may, I'd like to introduce Rob Williamson, who's going to present on this item. Board policy is that we take a look at our pay and classification plan every 3 to 5 years. We last did that back in 2023. We did a fairly deep dive at that point. We upgraded job descriptions and we revised the plan. Rob was a part of that with Evergreen. He led the effort back in 2023. He has since formed his own company now, and so we brought him in to look at the study again this year. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rob to present his findings.
Thank you, Richard. Mr. Chairman, board members, good to be with you today. So thoughts go out to Lisa today, and know that we're thinking about her. Sure. In conjunction with Brown and Caldwell, we have some information and update that we want to give you today. You've been provided the presentation in your backup, so we'll move relatively quickly. But you know, I do this all day, every day. And so if you have any questions, please stop me along the way. The study process basically started with, we were going to review your overall pay plan. For me, as Richard mentioned, I was here a few years ago, and we did your comprehensive classification and compensation study. So for me, it was more of looking at what maybe has changed as it relates to your water workforce from last time to now. And then after we completed that initial assessment, then we moved into a review of the market. Are there new peers that we want to use this time that maybe we didn't use last time? Are there dynamics that we want to make sure we're considering as we're evaluating your competitiveness as a water authority and the unique way in which you operate? Then we moved into the benchmarking, the different peers, the different positions that we want to use. And then once we got the data back in, that was reviewed, and then we're making recommendations on, do we want to change the position grade assignments or the pay grades that these positions for these water professionals and support professionals are placed into to make sure we're maintaining the level of competitiveness that you want. Then we've got to pay for it, right? And so that's the competitiveness piece that we're looking at, making sure that we're competitive and how much is it going to cost to be competitive. That's the implementation cost piece. And then lastly, we find ourselves here today with the recommendations. So as far as a utility overview goes, typically I like to start very broadly and then bring it back down to the local level. I'm just going to net it out this way. For you as policymakers, if you take nothing else away from this presentation today, I hope that you take away the fact that right now, you should be doing everything in your power to preserve, to protect, to retain the water professionals that you have on staff now. The dynamic across the country, I've spent the last 4 years working with utilities from LA to Portland, Canada, down to the Keys. And I can tell you that the pain from trying to recruit and retain talent is real. And when you look at the state of Florida, it's been the fastest growing state since 2020 in the country. And these 4 member counties that make up this water authority are some of the fastest growing of the 67 in the state. So when you start looking at, all right, we have an aging workforce and water, specifically operators. You know, the average age is around 46 years of age, combined or compared to the average age across the country for the workforce is 42. Then you add in that women only make up 15% of the total water workforce, along with the fact that it's more technologically advanced now to be a water professional than it has ever been. So when you combine all of those things together, along with the rapid population growth, it just continues to, and make sure that you're aware as leaders, you need to be doing whatever you can to preserve the talent that you've got. Because it's not so much how long is it going to take us to replace talent once it leaves, it's are you going to be able to replace talent? We could realistically get to that point in the very near future. The good news is for you is that you execute at a very high level. When it comes to culture, when it comes to leadership, that's not a problem. Richard is so highly regarded in the industry across the country. There is no doubt people that want to stay here and work here because of the leadership team that you have in place, along with this board as well. So as we look at the benchmarking of the peers that we look to compare to, this is important because kind of when you say what's our market and we want to be competitive to market, these are the entities that make up your market. And obviously, we could put in 30 different market peers if we wanted to. But what we're trying to get to is a good mix where we have some on the high end, some on the low end. Obviously, populations may differ, budgets may differ. But overall, these are the 17 market peers that we included. Many of them are the same. Inglewood was one particular change that we didn't have in 3 or 4 years ago that was added this year. Very robust data set, y'all. Of the 17 peers we went out to market to evaluate, we returned data from 16 of them, okay? And so we also had about a 9.3 average, which means that for every one of the positions that we had in the study, on average, we got 9 data points. We had 9 responses from those market peers. So we feel like that helps strengthen the recommendations that we can put in front of you as leaders. When we look at the positions, we had up to 59 positions that we included, that we went out to market to observe of the job positions that you have. And ultimately, the results, thankfully, the policy of moving your pay ranges based on CPI every year has worked from the standpoint of it has allowed you to stay in touch with the market. Imagine how far behind the market you would be if this board had not put that policy in place a few years ago. You would have had a lot more turnover, you would have had a lot more churn, you would have had a lot more negative outcomes here at the authority. At the minimum, overall, if we add all of those 59 positions together, that returned at least 5 data points, for what was virtually all of them, you're 5% behind overall at the minimum. Some positions a little bit more, some positions a little bit less. The midpoint, 6%. The midpoint is particularly important for your organization because as an employee would start to get a little bit of experience and they start to gain those certifications that they need in this heavily regulated industry, that midpoint is usually where an employee is going to be approaching in their career earning potential. They come in at that minimum, but as they start to get that experience, they become more valuable. They're more highly sought after. So if another utility is going to try to poach your people, they're looking for those folks that have a little bit of experience. And so you want to make sure that you're competitive at that midpoint. You're behind by 6%. We're recommending a 5.6% adjustment. What does that mean? You're taking your pay ranges and you're moving them to the right 5.6%. That's what that means, okay? Then we have to figure out how are we going to move employees into those pay ranges that we just moved. And you have different ways that you can do that. Last time, we recommended bring to minimum. If an employee is below the minimum of their new pay range, we're going to increase their salary to make sure that they're moved into the new pay range at the minimum. If their current salary is above the minimum of this new pay range, no adjustment is given. I think last time we had maybe 6 employees and it was a little over 10 grand, okay? This time we're looking at 10 employees and it's a little over 16,000. That should be important because that lets you know that you're, like I said, you're staying in touch with the market at the minimum, but you're also moving employees appropriately throughout their career. That's why we don't have these large adjustments at the minimum. This is a little bit of a description of the different options that we put forward to evaluate. Ultimately, working with staff, we are recommending the bring to minimum option that you had before you when it comes to the level of cost. Overall tenure is another option where you're going to move employees based on how many years of service they've had. We didn't really feel like that was appropriate because sometimes you might bring an incumbent in and they might have 10 years of experience that they're bringing with them, but they only have 1 year of experience at Peace River. We don't want to be adjusting employees and devaluing that experience. So we didn't recommend that one. The other one was cost prohibitive. You can see that if we were going to preserve the range placement where an employee was in their range, you're looking at close to 300 grand and 8% of payroll. At the end of the day, we'd love to, have everybody look underneath their seat here today and you get a car and you get a car. That's not the reality. We have bills to pay. We need to be good stewards of the dollars that we have. And so we didn't feel like that 6%, 300 grand, that the juice was worth the squeeze there. It wasn't going to make a significant impact in your recruitment and retention. So we are at that bring to minimum as a recommendation, right under 17,000. It really amounts to what could be considered a rounding error at about 0.25% of your total payroll. The next steps for us is we will write a draft and final report to memorialize the study findings and the work that we've done for you, and we'll provide that to staff to be disseminated. We would recommend that this be incorporated into your budget and that your job descriptions be updated accordingly. The action before the board today is to approve or accept the classification and compensation study results, and that we would move those employees affected into their new pay ranges. And with that, I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions from Mr. Williamson? Commissioner Bearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is in regards to, I'm looking at the competitors, i.e. the counties. How are you justifying that pay in regards to the cost of living in some of these specific areas for the jobs that are being increased or whatever that might be? Is it based off of the location, or are you just looking across governments? Because somebody down in Miami-Dade might get paid more than Manatee County, for example.
No, absolutely, and it's a great question. In your market, if we were comparing more public works related positions or non-water positions would maybe be a better way of saying it. You know, that cost of living adjustment is very important. The ones that we have selected in your market, yeah, we stretch it out there a little bit when we go to Pasco. You know, that's a little bit far from here. But as far as a cost of living adjustment, we didn't have one last time, even though we evaluated having a cost of living adjustment last time. And I had the same recommendation this time because I just didn't feel, it would be like if we included DeSoto's positions on there, you could argue that they are going to maybe significantly reduce the overall market position. And if you had in nothing but Hillsborough County type positions, it might be elevated. But when we looked at all of the positions or all of the peers and you average that together, the cost of living adjustment didn't seem appropriate for water-specific positions. So that was kind of the rationale there.
Got it. And so as time is moving fast, and Executive Director, you might want to weigh in on this. What are we doing as far as, looking at digital monetization capabilities regarding workforce allocation and service delivery, optimal service delivery at the same time? With the technologies that's coming out today, right, just so you know, I'm currently getting my doctorate at Pepperdine University, and this is my particular area that I'm focusing on. What type of future technologies can we leverage that is coming down the pipeline that will possibly replace jobs, essentially? So in the private sector, coders are gone. That's $70 an hour jobs, right? Why? Because we have AI technologies now that are essentially able to get up 90% of the specific job that is being rendered. So my question is are there technologies that we're looking at in the future to possibly reduce or just shift them into another skill set so that we can optimize the organization?
I think in general, the water industry is looking at that. You're talking about AI capabilities to operate a water plant and things like that. That's certainly coming down the pike. I don't know that we're as far ahead as some of the other countries. I know some folks that are involved in AWWA who recently went to South Korea, and they have fully automated water plants there, and an operator basically just sits there and verifies everything's working correctly. I don't know if the regulations in the U.S. are going to allow something like that in the future, but it's certainly going that way, and we certainly do need to look into that as an option to optimize staff and optimize the operations. So yes.
Wonderful. That's just, with everything that's moving so quick today.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't even keep up as society of what's going on. It's definitely something to look into, and it looks like you're already doing it, so thank you.
I will say you still do need a live body to make sure everything's going out the door, so absolutely.
It's true, though. Claude Code has removed coders, and you're spot on. I think, those areas of consulting, the days of paying a consultant $50,000 to do a comp study when you could use Claude and you could get that done or close to it for next to nothing, those are right around the corner. Absolutely, and the value that's going to be brought to the table is going to change. Your support positions are definitely going to change. But I envision if we still have the issues with getting operators, you could absolutely have a world where you've got somebody sitting in their pajamas in Orlando and they're monitoring 5 different plants that are their responsibility because they hold the license, and they might never even visit the facility. Exactly what you're talking about in Korea, because you get to a point where if we're going to regulate it to where we're going to require a body to be there, we're going to run out of bodies at this rate. So it's really good for you to bring that up and to be thinking about that. It's the way we're heading for sure.
Okay, now I appreciate that. However, if the pump breaks down, AI is not going to go out there and fix it. So we're going to have
That's
some
right.
people on the ground.
That's right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Singh.
motion to accept the revised classification and pay plan and adjust the effective current employees to the minimum of their respective new pay range.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That moves forward unanimously. Thank you for your report. And with AI, I guess in 3 to 5 years, that'll just be done at a push of a button with Claude, right?
That's right. Sounds weird for me to say that, but yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Same thing could be said for your lawyer.
It's true. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to regular agenda item number 4, which is the Punta Gorda water purchase request. And for that, we have Mr. Anderson.
There we go. Good morning, Mr. Chair. For the record, Richard Anderson of your staff. I'm going to cover the last regular item today on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is a request from the city of Punta Gorda to purchase water from the authority. What I'm going to go over is a brief background of our interconnects with the city, kind of a little history of the interconnects and how they operate. Then I'll discuss the details of the city's request. And then finally, we need to have a discussion on what we call the interconnect water charge, which is the water charge we levy to non-authority customers that buy water from the authority. So with that, so this is the service area we're talking about. We have 2 24-inch diameter connections with the city of Punta Gorda. You can see here they're in the blue pipes there that run under the river. You can see them here in the red circle. These connections allow us to move water around where it's needed. We can share resources with the city, and it really improves the reliability of both our system and the city's system. The connections, the first connection was what we call the Phase 1 transmission main and pumping station. That connection has been in operation since October of 2012. It travels down through the Deep Creek area of Charlotte County, crosses under the river, and then it ties into the Punta Gorda's 30-inch transmission main along US 17 in the area they call Cleveland. The second connection, which is on the right there, the Phase 1 interconnect, that was installed in July of 2020, and that is a direct connection to the Punta Gorda's facility. That ties right into their influent to the plant, and it mixes with the water that the city produces, and then they pump that water out directly to their customers. Currently, these pipes are operated in what we call a water exchange mode. Basically, we deliver water to the city through this Phase 1 interconnect here, directly into the plant, and then they give us an equal amount of water back through the Phase 1A interconnection. So it's a zero net exchange that we provide on a daily basis with the city. Here's a little more background. As you can see, this is, like I said, this station, the Phase 1A station went into operation in October 2012. There was quite a bit of fanfare. We had some dignitaries presenting from the city, former Executive Director, Mr. Lehman, the chair of SWIFTMUD at the time, Paul Semth, and Commissioner Constance from Charlotte County. The Phase 1 interconnect came online in July of 2020, which was in the throes of COVID, so we did not have a groundbreaking for that that interconnect, but nonetheless, it's equally as important. What these do is they increase, as I said, system resiliency. It allows us to wheel water back and forth between the city and the region should we need it. It provides a backup to supply to both the city and us, helps us meet rotational capacity. And both of these projects, by the way, were cooperatively funded by the Water Management District. They both contributed, received funds from SWIFTMUD for the projects. And again, water is exchanged daily on these interconnects. Just want to point out again, the city has been a great regional partner for us on this. They're great to work with from an operational standpoint. Whenever there's an issue going on, we work collaboratively. Their operations staff and our staff work great together. They're in constant communication. And as you can see, since October of 2012, we've exchanged almost 4 billion gallons of water between us and the city. That's an average of 780,000 gallons per day that we exchange back and forth with the city. And what that does is it allows this line to remain in a ready-to-serve status. If there's an emergency, we can flip the switch within an hour to deliver water to the city, or they can deliver water back to us in a similar emergency. Also allows for routine maintenance of either system. If we need to take a pump down and work on something and we need an extra 1 million gallons for a week, they give it to us, and vice versa. We also supply them water for their system needs. Unplanned shutdowns as well as hurricanes and so forth will proactively shut down the station before the hurricane, so it's less of a maintenance issue for us to worry about, one less thing to fix if the storm comes our way. So it provides us that flexibility to meet demands and also manage things when storms come up. The request that they have in here is really the last item on the list, to meet seasonal demands. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. The city is planning an expansion of their reverse osmosis facility. They can currently treat 4 MGD at that facility, and they're going to be expanding that to 8 MGD, so they're adding another 4 million gallons of treatment. But due to the growth in the city, they are requesting this temporary purchase of water to bridge that gap between now and when this plant expansion comes online. The need is seasonal. Their need, for the most part, they can meet their demands, but when they're in this period of time, this time of year, April, May, early June, the flows are so low in Shell Creek that they have to maintain a minimum flow and level requirement, and they can only treat up to about 8.2 MGD during those few months. So the need would be for us to supply them water for those few months of the year. Now, I mentioned we're exchanging water. The potential exists to have them pay that water back to us. So let's say we give them 1 million gallons a day for 3 months in April, May, June. The wet season comes around, they can produce more water. They pay that back, and they do pay that back now. Every year, the procedure is we give them water in early spring, and they pay us back in the summer. And then by September of each year, we true it up to a net zero. That could potentially continue to happen, but what this does is allows them to buy water should they need it going forward in the future. What you see here, this was in your board package. This is the table that the city submitted with their request. It shows their demands that they're asking for. So you can see here, starting in 2026, they're asking for 0.23 MGD, moving up through 2031, a little over 500,000 gallons of annual average demand. Now I want to just kind of talk for a minute about the contract or the mechanism that we have in place. We have what's called the Water Systems Interconnect and Water Transfer Contract. This is an agreement that the authority entered into with Punta Gorda back in September of 2013. That's when the Phase 1A pump station came online. And that allowed, at the time, for the transfer of water through emergency situations and just routine swapping of water. The contract was amended in February of 2016 when the Phase 1 pump station tie-in was being designed and constructed. That amendment allowed for not only the transfer of water, but also the sale of water by either party. And then the final contract amendment was in 2019, and that kind of expanded that window of how much can we exchange each year and still achieve that net zero determination. We've pulled out a couple of the relevant contract provisions I just wanted to touch base on with you just briefly. Again, we have the water exchange provision in place, provision 4.1, that allows us to swap water back and forth every day, which we're doing right now. 4.2 is that new provision that allows us to purchase water. Either party can purchase water. We could purchase water from them or vice versa. And that is based on what's termed available water. And what that means is once we meet your needs, all the authority customers and members' needs, if there's excess water, we can provide it to the city or any other entity. It could be any other regional customer that would want to buy water. We could sell it should we have excess capacity to sell that water. And then finally, the water rate. And I purposely put that last because we're going to have some continued dialogue on that. But the rate that we charge is established as part of our budget process each year. I'll show you the chart in just a second, but that value is approved through the budget process and is established by you to set that rate for the non-member users. With that, I want to pause for a minute and see if there's any questions on the actual motion to supply water to the city. It doesn't affect the rate discussion, but I would like to take any questions now if you had them on the actual water purchase.
Commissioner Tiseo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in understanding the way you describe it, there is a true-up or reconciliation period where the authority's not billing them monthly for whatever water they're using. We actually wait to September, and then we true up. And at the end of the day, they could be using water from the authority, but they give it back. There is no invoicing. There is no payment. We get paid back in water, the same water they took.
Correct, correct.
And historically, it appears that when rainy season hits, they have the water to give back to the authority. So there's a pretty good chance we're never going to send them an invoice for payment.
That's a possibility, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
There's been one time in the 12 or 13-year period where they've actually purchased a little bit of water, and that was during the construction of the Phase 1 line. They were at the same time working on some high-service pumps, I believe. I'm not sure exactly, but they weren't able to give us back the water in the summer, and they purchased a very small amount. They cut us a check for about 20 grand, I think, to cover the water. But other than that, we've been able to swap it out.
Yeah, you mentioned the construction time frame that this would be tied to, you know, when they're going to bring their new capacity online. My understanding is that they have the cost of construction budgeted but not funded, I believe. I don't think it's funded yet. Should they go past the window that we're providing, would that have to come back to this board? They'd have to get an extension?
I would recommend bringing it back to the board if they ran past the time frame that
Right.
they're asking for now, yes.
So in the agreement, there's not a built-in extension period?
The current agreement, just to be clear, is a one-year agreement. So what it says is each year they can request water. So it really is a year-to-year contract right now. We can look at modifying that or putting an amendment into that to allow them to purchase this water for the 5-year period through 2031. That's certainly something we can do. I'll defer to Doug on the legalities of all that and whether we need to do an amendment, but technically we have to verify that we have available water each year before we give them water.
You mentioned the updated costs associated with purchasing the water as part of our budget process. That cost to them then would be subject to change annually as this body goes through the budget adjustment. So they're not locked in to a rate this year for the 6 years. That will be adjusted annually as we go through the budget process.
Correct, correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, other comments, questions? So, Mr. Anderson, this is, I understood it to be a 5-year agreement from what that we're looking at putting in place.
They're asking for water for a 5-year period.
Okay.
And Doug, please chime in if I'm saying something wrong about the contract, but it is an actual annual request. So that would be
5 years, but they'd be able to purchase water, but we would be reviewing the cost annually.
Correct. And I think what the preference of staff would be to update this as part of the budget process every year, just have an automatic mechanism to update that number the same way we update our rate to you as members.
Thoughts? So, yeah, I certainly support this. I think good neighbors and have a great relationship and works well for everybody. And the request is very small in terms of the amount of water that they might be purchasing. In fact, they might not purchase any depending on how things turn out. So I would certainly support that. I guess the discussion is what we're going to charge them for it, right?
Yeah, yes, sir, yes.
Okay.
And I would hope they would not ever buy water because that means we have a nice wet summer and we fill the reservoir up and so. it would
What's
be
the
a great
recommendation
thing.
here in terms of the water rate? I mean, I know we need to update that.
If you will allow, I'll go through a couple of slides on that. I have some information on the rate, which is not part of the motion, but I'm trying to give sort of a preview to Ann's budget discussion to help frame the conversation for you.
Okay, so we need a motion on approving, moving forward with an agreement.
Correct.
And the charge is going to be part of the process we go through annually, I guess.
The charge will be covered as part of the budget discussion.
Got it. Okay, so looks for a motion.
Yeah, did you want to finish the presentation, or we can make a motion anytime, Mr. Chair?
It's your pleasure. We could do the motion now or at the end of my slides on the cost, either one.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to purchase water by the city of Punta Gorda up to the quantities identified in the 5-year water supply projections table in tab B, subject to annual available quantities.
Second. Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call the question. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Chair votes aye, moves forward unanimously. Okay, thank you. All right, go
Great,
ahead.
thank you very much. Now, if you'll bear with me, I'll change gears a little bit and we'll talk about the rate a little bit and help facilitate Ann's discussion on this. So as you see here, this is the page out of our budget that just covers the interconnect water charge, or the government rate. It was originally established as part of the 2014 budget. As you can see, the numbers back then were $3.30. And then for the conservation charge, it was double. It was $6.60. This number's never been updated because we've frankly never had to use it. We've never sold water to any non-authority customer. So this number has kind of just been parked on this sheet for the last 12 years. Now that we have a request, it's time to update that number and take a look at what makes sense to make that update. The methodology we used back in 2013 for that 2014 budget is kind of shown here on this table. If you start at the bottom, you see the authority's rate at the time. This is the rate for the base rate plus the use rate was $2.64. The numbers for your bulk services to your bulk customers are, you see Charlotte County was $3.30, DeSoto $3.75. Manatee's was they have a capacity charge on top of this, so the 159 was more about 189, I think, with the capacity charge. But Sarasota County was 413, so the rates were above, obviously the authority's rate. Fast forward to today, here's your bulk rates in 2025. Charlotte County 457. DeSoto remains unchanged at 375. Manatee's rate is 298 when you factor in that $15,000 per month charge. Sarasota's is at 529, and the authority's projected rate for next year is 406. So the rate that we set, the 330, if you remember, was 125% of the authority's rate back in 2014. So that's the 330 number that you saw. What the staff has done, we've put together a couple of different options. These are by no means exclusive. We're open, hoping to get some good discussion from the board and get some direction on how we want to proceed. But obviously, option one would be to set that interconnect rate the same rate as the pool water rate, which would be the 406 in 2027. Again, this is not only for Punta Gorda, this is a rate that would be used by any potential customer that wants to buy water that's not an authority member. The second option would be 110%, which is $4.47. That mimics fairly closely to Charlotte County's number right now of 457. The third option would be 125% or 508 1,000 gallons, which is a little bit less than Sarasota's rate of 529 right now. And then the fourth option could be 150% of our pool rate, or 609. So at this point, I really would just ask for some feedback from the board on this and your thoughts on some direction for staff. This does not have to be decided today. We can bring this back in June if you ask for more information. It does have to be part of the August budget approval process. So we have some time if there's questions or concerns.
Okay, Commissioner Tiseo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, if it's not time sensitive today, I'd probably like to have a board discussion with my board just to go over the numbers and get some input from them if it's not time sensitive, and then bring it back at the next meeting. And you all may want to do the same with your respective boards, but we have one municipality in Charlotte County. It's the city of Punta Gorda. So I'd like to have that conversation with my colleagues.
All right, is there any objection to that? So you can bring that back at our, as our June meeting, perhaps? you be able to bring it back by the June meeting?
Sure, we can bring it back for June, yes.
All right, so with that, does that complete your part of the presentation then?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay.
So we'll bring something back in June.
Any further questions? All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our tentative budget for fiscal year 2027. And we have Ann Lee here with us. You gotta press the button. There you go. There you go.
I don't even need it, I'm so loud, right?
You might need it in the back there.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Lee of your staff. I'm pleased to be here this morning to present the tentative budget for FY27. Pursuant to the second amended interlocal agreement, the authority is obligated to create a tentative budget no later than May 15th and the final budget no later than August 15th, which drives the budget calendar you see here. At our February 4th meeting, Mr. Anderson reviewed our governing documents and discussed budget issues and considerations for FY27. At the March 4th professional staff meeting, we discussed the FY27 tentative budget, and today we're presenting the tentative budget for your consideration, and we'll bring back a final budget for your consideration on August 5th. Between now and August 5th, we have 2 professional staff meetings and 1 board meeting, so if there's changes to be made, we have plenty of time to do so. Similar to your respective county's water operations, the authority is set up as an enterprise fund. All our operating funds come from water sales and planning assessments to our 5 customers, and we do not levy any taxes to support our activities. Budgetarily, the enterprise fund is made into 2 cost centers, administrative and facilities. The administrative side covers the Lakewood Ranch office, which hosts the executive, finance, HR staff, and our related expenses. And the facilities group includes everyone else: operations and maintenance, technical services, construction, and water production. Before we get into the details of our tentative budget, here's an overview of the tentative budget charges per cost center as compared to the current budget year. As shown here, the administrative office charges make up less than 1% of the total budget, and the tentative decrease for that cost center is $320. The remaining 99% of our budget is attributed to facilities, which is slated to increase by $51.8 million, primarily driven by those CIP projects discussed by Mr. Knowles earlier. In aggregate, the FY27 tentative budget is $51.8 million higher than the current budget year. In terms of revenues, here's a comparison of the total revenues found within the FY27 tentative budget to the current fiscal year. Water sales in FY27 is projected to be up about $9 million due to increased customer demands. CIP funds reflect an increase of $41 million. Grant revenues are expected to increase by $2 million. The other category, which includes planning assessments, member fees, rental income, and interest income, is expected to remain flat. Reserve funds, which includes transfers, those internal transfers from R&R accounts, rate stabilization account, is also the same as 2026. And lastly, carry forward funds, which includes the debt service coverage funds, as well as the 2015 bond refunding savings, and regular carry forward is slated to decrease slightly to $3.8 million. To further discuss the revenues, the majority of the authority's operating revenues are derived from the water rate. The authority's water rate is made up of 2 components: the base charge and the water use charge. The base charge is comprised of several items: the fixed operating costs, which are charged based upon capacity allocation in the facility; debt service costs, which are charged based upon customer participation in the debt. We have the DeSoto payment, which increased this year in accordance to Exhibit A of the Master Water Supply Contract. And then we have contributions to the system-wide benefit projects. This charge is levied on a monthly basis regardless of the amount of water delivered. The second part of our water rate is the water use charge, which represents the authority's variable costs. For us, those variable costs are those attributed to power, chemicals, and residual disposal. This charge is levied on a monthly basis based upon actual metered use. This graph shows the historical base rate charge from FY '23 through '26 by its pieces, as well as the proposed base rate for FY '27. Please note that that other category comprises of the DeSoto payment and the system-wide benefit contributions. The FY '27 tentative budget base rate totals $42.6 million, which is an increase of 56.3%, or roughly $8.5 million over the current fiscal year. $7.7 million of that increase is from the additional bonded debt from those 2025 bonds and the increased DeSoto payment. The fixed cost portion of the base rate increased roughly $807,000, or 4.2% from the current fiscal year. In terms of base rate per customer, this chart reflects the changes from the current fiscal year to the FY '27 tentative budget. Due to the additional debt from the 2025 bonds, as well as that updated DeSoto payment schedule, all customers will see an increase in their base rate, with the largest increases to Sarasota and Charlotte, as they are the major participators in that 2025 debt. As a reminder, the 2025 debt was partially for the surface water system expansion project, as well as the Phase 2B pipeline. Similar to the graphic we showed for the base rate, this shows the water use charge from '23 to '27. We had significant increases in power and chemical costs between '23 and '24, which drives that huge increase you're seeing here from 89 cents a thousand gallons to $1.09. We are very lucky that a lot of those large changes have moderated, and in '27, we're looking at an increase of 2 cents per thousand gallons on the use rate, which is a less than 2% increase. Just like your respective county office, the authority engages with a rate consultant that helps look at our near and long-term rates to ensure we continue to budget in accordance with policy. Stantec is our rate consultant, and this model is updated throughout the year for actual results, and escalation factors and assumptions are reviewed and modified regularly. What you're seeing here is a shot from the authority's rate model that reflects the need to increase to $1.18 per thousand gallons for FY '27, and that this rate should continue to increase between 2 and 4 cents per thousand gallons for the next 10 years. Outside of the water rate, the authority has relatively small assessments on the revenue side, which include our member fee and our planning assessment. Member fees support the administrative cost center for the authority, and this fee is proposed to decrease about $22,000 when compared to the 2026 budget. This decrease is due to the increased rental income we have with our new tenant, so thank you to them. The last of our revenue items is the management and planning assessment. This assessment covers planning projects such as the feasibility studies, coordination with Polk Water, updates to the master water supply contract. In conjunction with the FY '26 budget, we discussed and levelized this assessment for the next 3-year period, and this is the second year of that 3-year period. Therefore, we recommend maintaining the current assessment of $475,000. This assessment by board policy is split between all 5 customers based on their pro rata share of the regional population, so individual portions change slightly with these population changes, but overall the difference is 0. In terms of expenses, here's a comparison of the total expenses found within the FY '27 budget to the current fiscal year. Operations and maintenance is up about $1.46 million, where slight increases and adjustments based upon historical spending and expected needs have ensured an increase in line with inflation. Debt service for water supply and pipeline projects has been updated to reflect the 2025 bonds, and therefore the increase from the current fiscal year of $7.3 million. Projects, which include CIP, R&R projects, and management and planning projects is up $42.6 million as we continue to expand. County payments has increased to $1.4 million in accordance with Exhibit A of the Master Water Supply Contract. Disbursements are on par with the current fiscal year, and other, which includes contributions to the R&R reserve and various internal transfers, has increased slightly. As we take a look at some of these individual expense categories for operations and maintenance, the total operations and maintenance budget projected for 2027 is $31.6 million, which is up 4.9% from 2026. Power and chemical costs increase in aggregate about $629,000, primarily due to increased customer demands. Staff and benefit costs are projected to be up about $440,000, which includes a 4% increase in compensation and a 4% increase in health insurance costs. The repairs and maintenance increase is about $325,000 or 13% due to increased costs in the number of assets we are maintaining. Contract services, which include services such as general engineering, reservoir permit monitoring, the HBMP program, decreased by 3.8% or $113,000. General administration increased by 4.9% or $30,000, primarily due to increased software needs and costs. And lastly, we have scheduled an increase of $153,000 in machinery and equipment to support additional needs for lab equipment, plant calibration equipment, vehicles, and replacement of servers and computers. The other rate-related expenditures portion of our budget primarily represents internal fund transfers, contingency funds, and debt service coverage amounts. This portion of the budget totals $8.2 million, which reflects a decrease from the current budget by about $211,000. In terms of projects, we have projected $302 million in expenditures for the FY27 CIP projects, which includes the surface water system expansion project and completion of the Phase 2B and 3C pipelines. We expect $76 million in CIP funding will come from Swift Mud grants, with the balance of the required funding coming from debt. There is also one system-wide benefit project included in this section, the Kings Highway pipeline replacement. Finally, the budget includes disbursements of $1.8 million in debt service coverage funds collected from customers in FY26, as well as the 2015 bond savings. In aggregate, when you look at the annual budget in terms of its pieces, the O&M costs are increasing slightly through time, generally in line with inflation. The non-O&M, which includes debt service, internal transfers, and fund disbursements, is fairly stable, and any dramatic changes are associated with the changes in our debt service. The largest change this fiscal year, as it has been the last few, is the CIP portion of the budget as we continue to move forward with those new supply and transmission projects to meet customer needs. The CIP will continue to be the dominant expense in our budget through 2029. The final section of the budget that I'd like to bring your attention to is that interconnect rate that Mr. Anderson just discussed. As you stated, you would like some more additional time to obtain staff feedback and information on this. We do have several pages included in our tentative budget that show some of the options. So I would just suggest that we move forward in the motion with option number 1, which would maintain the current situation, as we do need something to put into our tentative budget, but that is up to the board. The motion does have a blank there in that section.
So if we do that, we can, as we come back in June, we can set that.
Yes, sir, in whatever option you would like to use.
Okay, got it. Okay. It's tentative, so yeah, we can come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that complete your part 1 of the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, with that, looking for a motion on that then, or any questions?
Mr. Chair, if there's no questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the tentative budget for the fiscal year 2027 in the amount of $368,834,459, including updating the interconnect water charge to option 1, was it?
Yes, sir.
Option 1.
Okay, we have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reardon. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and call the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That moves forward unanimously. Thank you for that presentation. That was really well done.
I have one more motion for
I
your
understand.
consideration.
We got to move on to the
Yes,
item
sir.
two,
Budget item
resolution.
number 2 is for Resolution 2026.03, which formalizes the board's intent of the adoption of tentative budget for 27 and establishes the rates, fees, and charges based upon that tentative budget. And here's the motion for your consideration.
Okay, looking for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the resolution 2026-03, resolution setting forth preliminary schedules of rates, fees, and charges for fiscal year 2027.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Teseo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and call the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That moves forward unanimously. Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. My pleasure.
Bring that back in June. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our general counsel's report.
One thing new I have to report is there,
Yeah, push the button.
sorry, the only thing new I have to report is we have another indication of a soon-to-be payment from the PFAS settlement fund. It should be somewhere between about $750,000 to $1 million to the authority. It'll come before this summer.
Okay. Any questions for council? Seeing none, thank you for that report. Moving to the executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two items. First, you heard Katie talk about, I'm sorry.
Counselor, turn off his mic.
Oh, turn it.
Thank you. Yeah, good feedback. Thank you.
You heard Katie talk about the drought conditions and the response to the drought. I just want to take a minute to thank the Water Management District staff and the executive team over there, because they were so cooperative in working with us, as well as the city of Punta Gorda, to put those emergency orders through. And it's going to be a huge help to us to get through this drought and make it to the rainy season. So just want to recognize them for their efforts and their partnership with us. The second item, Jonathan Lewis alluded to it a little bit. He referenced Mr. Jim Guida. Hope this doesn't become a habit, but Mr. Guida has decided to retire here. Actually, this Friday is his last day. Jim has been a part of the authority for, how old are you, Jim? You started when you were 12 getting involved in the authority? But he, you know, through his time at the Water Management District, he was helping through the regulatory process with us with permitting. Then as a private consultant, he worked with the authority, and now he's spent the last 4 years with us, helping us get permits and helping us shepherd these projects into construction. So want to wish Jim well. I know he's got some plans and he's going to take good advantage of it, but thanks for all your support, Jim, and over the years, and keep in touch even though you might not be in the area or something. So thank you.
Thank you for your service, and obviously guided it through a very important time in our history and in future. So thank you for that. Further comments on that? Thank you. Anything further? All right, that you have your routine reports as a part of your package. So with that, I'll move to board member comments. Do we have any board member comments? Commissioners? Commissioner Knight?
I'd just like to say, Jim, we're gonna miss you, and I think with the current fuel prices and stock market kind of doing like it was, you might ought to hang around a little while until all that straightens out, you know. And but I guess if you get in a pickle, we might can find you a spot back here again, and you just have to take the walk of shame if you do that. But anyway, congratulations, and we wish you the best, man. Thank you for all you've done for us.
Commissioner Teseo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, maybe with the pay rate adjustments we just approved, it'll entice you to stay on a little longer. I think that's $16,000 across the board for everybody. Maybe there's a little nugget in there for you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Seeing no further board comments, any announcements, anything we need to be aware of? Next meeting is Friday, June 5th, pending approval, I guess, at DeSoto.
Yes, sir.
Look forward to that.
Be 5 minutes from my house.
That's right. About 5 hours from mine with the traffic right now. Okay. With that, seeing nothing further, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We're adjourned.